record.
This is Commission hearing number 156 of Wednesday, 19th May 2021, in case 150 José Saint-Ange, case 298 Frida Ford, case 242 Doreen Bouchot, case 189 Mohamed Goudapin, case 149 Rodrigue Larue and Marie Zilantin, and case 021 Benjamin Pierre-Louis.
Thank you. Can you please call the first witness?
Mr. José Saint-Ange and Anna-Lisa Saint-Ange. Annalise.
I,
José Saint-Ange,
swear
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
nothing but the truth,
and nothing but the truth.
so help me God.
So help me God.
I, Annalise
Saint-Ange,
Saint-Ange,
swear
swear
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
nothing but the truth,
so help me God.
so help me God. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. St. Ange and Annalise St. Ange, for appearing before the Commission again today. It's a bit like deja vu. It's the same time on Monday, right? So
Yeah.
today's when it's only Wednesday, but it feels like a long time ago anyway. But thank you very much for appearing again today. I understand from last time that we're going to hear today about the compulsory acquisition of the bakery, Say Bake.
That's correct.
Yeah, so you are the complainant. Please take your time in setting out the complaint. If you need to adjourn at any time, let us know, and we're happy to accommodate you. We don't have our translator here this morning, so we would be grateful if you would speak in English. Our apologies to the general public, but I understand, Annalise, you don't speak Creole like me, unfortunately, but thank you again.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and Commissioner. Thank you for having us again. After so many years, it is nice to be able to present something, unfortunate things that happened in the past. I will hand to you, like I did before, a bundle of evidence and bits and bobs so you can read through. This time it's a bit more complex. Again, thank you for having us back again. On Monday, we discussed the acquisition of the land at Captaine by the government. Today, we are discussing Say Bake, showing how the government would take absolutely everything from you if you didn't fit. Anyone who lived in Seychelles in the late 70s and early 80s would know about, remember, the 1 rupee loaf of Say Bake. Say Bake was Seychelles' largest and most modern bakery at the time, and very popular. My in-laws, Maurice and Alan, were the majority shareholders of Say Bake, starting up the bakery with investment from other minority shareholders. The year is 1982, and life in Seychelles is becoming increasingly difficult, particularly for an Englishman like Alan. Alan and Maurice were feeling increasingly threatened and fearful for their lives and livelihood, with regular threatening phone calls and strange visits, as was happening with many others at the time as well. They had only recently had their land at Captaine taken from them. Due to this, they had started to look into leaving Seychelles and moving back to the safety of England, including purchasing a pub. They had even negotiated selling their majority shares in the bakery to Kersley Saint-Ange, my brother. However, before any of this could come to fruition, in December 1982, the bakery sadly burnt down, and no official cause ever given by the fire brigade, police, or Los Adjusters as to how the fire started. However, the scorch marks on the concrete wall at the rear of the property painted a different picture, with the Los Adjusters saying, informally at the time, it looked like the scorch marks of a flamethrower. The business was insured by General Insurance Company, underwritten by State Assurance Corporation, owned by government, and now called SACOS, and Lloyd's of London. After the fire, an insurance claim was lodged, and the loss adjuster, who came from Kenya, said it was a straightforward claim and wanted to know if the business would be claiming reinstatement or for a payout. The preference of the directors was for a reinstatement. This is where things started going horribly wrong. Alan, my father-in-law, was called by the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Pillay, for questioning. At the questioning, Alan was asked to confess to burning the bakery down, to use the insurance money to relocate to England and buy a pub. During the interview, the police commissioner knew information about Alan and his investigations into relocations, made it clear that government had been following him and his family for many months. At the same time, Maurice and myself were also taken into questioning and asked to confess that Alan had orchestrated the whole thing. No charges were ever laid, and the insurance company never processed the claim. On the advice of their lawyers, Mr. Philippe Boulet, proceedings were initiated against General Insurance Company for the insurance money. The matter was presided by Judge Wood, and may I say at this moment, as Mr. Bernard Roche once said in here, at that time, the only fair judgment was judgment from Mr. Wood. General Insurance Company were allowed 6 months in which to investigate the claim and obtain the final police findings. Following this time, and after having heard the matter, Judge Wood ruled in favor of SEBEC and ordered that the insurance be paid. By that time, Alan, Maurice, myself, and my wife had moved to the UK to escape the fear and uncertainty of living in Seychelles. We didn't even return for the trial for fear of what could happen to us. We didn't return to Seychelles for over 6 years. Following judgment, Mr. Bernie Edzin, who was the owner of General Insurance Company, together with his lawyer, met with us for a meeting in the UK. At this time, they said the company could not afford the insurance payout and instead offered majority shares in the Vista do Mar Hotel in Glacis as compensation. We refused this offer as we knew if we accepted the hotel, it would just be acquired by government for little to no compensation. We requested a payout or reinstatement of the business. Around the same time, one of the shareholders, Mr. Colin Hall, met with a contact he had in Lloyd's of London, who had underwritten the policy. It was told to him that Lloyd's were not approving the payout of the claim, as General Insurance Company had not paid any premium to them for a long period of time. They offered to pay the insurance of the premium if the premium that was owed to them were deducted from the payout, which we refused. General Insurance Company then appealed Judge Wood's decision, and 3 appeal judges from Africa were brought in to hear the case. The appeal judges overturned Judge Wood's decision, despite there being no proof, and without laying any charges. The appeal judges found that Alan's behavior was unusual, and they believed he had caused the fire. With no more avenues available to them, the company looked to sell the land on which SEBEC sat. Philippe Boulet secured a buyer, but before the deal could go through, the government acquired the land. Compensation was paid in the amount of 31,000 rupees, which was much less than the purchase price Mr. Boulet had secured, which was over 100,000 rupees. The government then unsold the land. Penlac is now situated where SEBEC used to be. For our own peace of mind, in 1984, we sought a legal opinion from Emery Parks and Company in Bristol in relation to the matter. They had counsel, Stephen Miller, from the Inns of Court, gave his opinion. He found there to have been a miscarriage of justice, but noted there was no further avenue of appeal in the Seychelles. This is a clear case of victimization. Albert René was against our family, and he set out to ruin us in any way possible, first taking Captain and then Sebeek. We arrived in England with nothing and had to start all over again. At this moment, I must point out when Mr. Edzin and his lawyer, Mr. Valauji, came to meet with us in London, after we had said no, we were not taking Vista Doma, my mother-in-law asked him, because they knew each other, said, Bernie, why did you not settle before? Why did you wait now? And he said, I was promised by Martha René that you were Martha René, who was the head of State Assurance Corporation, that you were not going to be paid and she was not going to pay her share. And the government promised her that this was going to fall out. And also regarding the fear, I was approached after my father-in-law had left. My wife and I were staying at the house to tidy everything up. I was approached by a member of the army who said, Mr. Trnuc, I want to warn you that you are being followed. Everything you say in your house, we can hear. Even when you sit in your jacuzzi in the garden, we can hear what you're talking about. And please don't go out at night because there's people around your house. During the night, we could hear marching around the house. I ended up having to have an axe under my bed without my wife knowing, in case somebody came in. When we boarded Air France for London, it was a big sigh of relief for us. That's about it. Ready for some questions if you had any.
I mean, that's a terrible story, but with respect to the insurance payout, how much would that have been for you to rebuild that bakery? Did you know? It
was in the region of 5 million rupees.
5 million rupees.
And we already had, my father-in-law had already gone to London and sought all the prices for the machinery that we had in the business at the time. So we could bring it in and reinstate the bakery.
So this insurance company, Mr. Bernie Edzin, he was the owner or the government owned it?
He was the owner. He was the owner of General Insurance Company, but at the time, they were phasing him out because the government had set up the national state insurance.
So what sort of insurance company cannot pay out insurance claims? I mean, it's sort of... And when you say these 3 appeal judges come from Africa, do you know from where in Africa they came from? What country? We can probably find that out.
All the 3 names. I've got all the cases there, and all the details. And may I point out at this moment, because we are not seeking any compensation for Sebeek because it was a company, it's a limited company, and it's been dissolved. We just want to point out the malice that Albert René put on the people in Seychelles and forced you to leave your country with nothing. When we got to the UK after we lost the case, we had to start all over again. We met an old friend his daughter had married my brother-in-law, Mr. Dutchman. Mr. Dutchman said, come and join me and we'll do something together. You know, we can get the finance from the bank. We went to Barclays Bank, and a couple of days later, the manager called us in and said, got some bad news for you. I said, what's the matter? He said, we spoke to the bank manager in the Seychelles, the Standard Bank, and he said not to give you guys a single penny, not even a current account, because you're very bad people. You are crooks. So we found it very strange. So we asked him, please, can you give Mr. Everett from Standard Bank a call in front of us? He did. He phoned Mr. Everett, and Mr. Everett said, ignore whatever I had to say. I had to tell you what I had to in the email, not email, then it was telex. But please give those people as much help as you can. They're honest people. And Mr. Everett spoke to my father-in-law, Alan, and said, Alan, one day when I'm no more manager of Standard Bank, I will tell you the whole story. Unfortunately, we never heard the story because he died a couple of months later in a plane crash in Africa. So even there, they tried to just stop us earning a living.
Why was that? Why? What was the real motivation to victimize? What was the? Do you know?
You never know
No.
the motivation of Albert René. We weren't involved in politics. We were quiet people. SEBEC was used by the government because they were always asking for freebies, 1,000 cakes here for a celebration, 1,000 cakes there for another celebration. And each time the government would acquire a hotel or a business, if we were supplying bread and cakes to that business, we'd lose the business. So they tried to close us each time.
Your father was a minister of Albert René.
Yes.
What was the reason behind his resignation?
He just had enough. He saw through Albert René, and he had enough of his
Can his
doing.
resignation be the reason behind your persecution?
It could be, especially that my dad, having nothing to do, was going to help my brother because he had started already for a month or two, coming to SEBEC to learn the ropes, so to help my brother take over afterwards. And if that was the reason to stop my father, Carl, from going ahead and doing that, because you've heard how he was done with Cabane des Anges and La Ligue, it was killing two birds with one stone. No doubt about it.
So you reckon it was more related to Mr. Carl Saint-Ange rather than Mr. Wilmot? I mean, did René have anything against Mr. Wilmot?
I think a bit of both, because Géva René used to call my mother-in-law constantly, so much so that we installed a second earpiece on the telephone so we could listen to the conversation. When Mike Asher was killed, she was on the phone, like, you were in Round Island the same day as Mike Asher, weren't you? Did you meet him? So we had to tell the story of Mike Asher, that we did meet Mike Asher. And this carried on, and she would call and say, Maurice, Alan is talking anti-government. We have got tape recordings of him against government. He better shut up. And also your daughter, Michelle, my wife was working for British Airways at the time. If she doesn't stop talking anti-government in the office, we are going to put her in jail, but we'll send Jose in with her. These are the things, and talking to a mother about a daughter, about a husband, it was just incredible.
So there were some veiled threats.
There was always a threat, yeah. I was listening to a conversation once, and Maurice made me listen, because my in-laws were going to the UK on a holiday, and I was in charge of the bakery. They had, as normal, a big order, free order of cakes for a celebration at State House. So Géva phoned and said, Maurice, what's going to happen to our order? She said, don't worry, Jose's got it in hand and he'll have it delivered. She said, Maurice, I'm really worried about this Jose. How can you trust him? He's such a bad man. That was before we got married. And so I decided to deliver the items myself at State House. I went up in the van, she met me, and she said, Jose, I'm so proud of you. Maurice is so lucky to have you as a son-in-law. This is what we had to put up with. So you could not live in this situation anymore. It was impossible.
I mean, the imaginations of people were very, how can I put it? I mean, they had great imaginations about what was going on and who was against them. They were very paranoid. So maybe the fact that you met Mike Asher meant that you were involved.
Yes, yeah.
In the plans of Mike Asher and Simon Denous.
And they knew that Mr. Ernestine and myself went out that night looking for Mike and Basil, because we had met during the day. And all this was known by them, and I don't think they were too happy. Because my poor wife was faced with a picture in the office, because there were some people working in British Airways that were very close to Albert René. She was shown a picture in the press. You look at this man, this guy from South Africa. Look at his legs, They were showing the pictures of the bombing of the poor guy. And she just kept quiet.
Be reported for that too, for keeping quiet, right?
That's correct.
And not. your encounter with Mike Asher?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did speak to.
Yeah.
Um,
I know he told me about
Yes.
it, but have you told us in this
no, we never
session?
did a.
Yeah. Can you tell us about it? Yeah.
Well, Mike Asher was introduced to us by Basil Savi, because he was staying with Basil, Mike and his girlfriend, and we went to a barbecue at Mr. Alan Enestin's residence, and Mike came along, and that's where we met him. And Mike that night was really asking a lot of questions about Seychelles, about military and whatever. We didn't we didn't think about that he was somebody coming here to do something. We arranged to go on a picnic. We went to Round Island on the Sunday. I think the barbecue was on a Friday. On the Sunday, we went to Round Island in, I think, Basil or Alan's boat. And we had lunch at Round Island. And Mike was playing pétanque, the French bulls, with one of the majors in the army. And the guy probably knew who he was. I think it was Major Bonte or Major Luca, probably Major Luca. Then we were going to meet Mike again afterwards. We actually went to Basil's house, and then the incident happened. But the night that Mike disappeared, his wife, his girlfriend, was petrified in the house alone, called Alan Enestin, because Alan was having a dinner with us at our house, called Alan and said, "I'm scared. Can you pick me up?" So Alan went to pick her up, and she said, "Basil is not back, Alan is not back, and we don't know what's happened." Then she started talking, Mike is he's a mercenary or whatever it was. This is when my father-in-law, Alan, said, "Alan, we are friends, please get this lady out of our house because we cannot be involved." And Alan took her away to his house, and later on Basil arrived and he took the girl back to Basil's house. But Alan and I went out, driving around, and to see if we could see back. We went to Mine Charter, we went to where he dropped his maid off, we went to behind the police station, and nothing. And we went back home. Very sad. He was a man full of character, full of jokes, full of character.
It was terrible what happened to him. And the girlfriend, we have been trying to track her. We do have her name now, I believe, do we or not? Yes, yeah, we do have her name. We have been trying to track her.
I don't know. I'm not sure. We've never been sure if she was a girlfriend or if she was just a cover-up. We don't know.
His activities. When she was saying he was a mercenary, did she say, and he's going to take over the country, or he's
no, it
here
was
to...
a recognition or something like that.
Okay,
So we
yeah,
thought, let's get away from that.
in 1982, right? And then everything that happened to you, it was acquired
Yeah.
in 84.
No,
in
80.
February 84.
80,
And-
yeah.
When was it burnt down exactly?
82. Burned in 82.
82.
Yeah. It was
I
after
mean, yes.
after that. Yeah.
It all makes sense.
Yeah.
No? Yeah.
But Basil was very frightened. When we met him, he started talking a little bit, then he shut up. He said he could not talk anymore because he heard the shot, he heard screams, and Mr. Rene gave him a whiskey or a brandy and said, "Drink this." And he thought, am I going to die? Is that poison in there? But he said, I had to drink it. I think he reckoned he was saved because his little boy was with him in the car. And he was the ex-brother-in-law of Mrs. Rene.
Was Basil Savvy involved, or he just thought that Mike was a tourist?
Was that Basil? I think Basil probably knew about it. Because it came out in the tape recordings and bits and pieces. Unfortunately, he's now passed, with all his secrets. Yeah, I know, you did, yes. He's passed, yeah.
Terrible. Our
He passed about a
condolences.
couple of months back.
Oh,
Yes.
our condolences to the family. I wasn't aware of that. So who else owned so how much of the bakery was owned by your family?
They own 52%. And because they had other shareholders before, they didn't have majority, but they kept having to keep buying other people's shares because there was a takeover bid at one time, and so they had to mortgage Captene, and they bought they had a house, so they had a mortgage on Captene. So the house was taken as well by the bank, not by government, but by the bank for next to nothing, just to cover the loans. You see, and when the fire happened, Sebek was probably running, just small overdraft. Sometimes it'll be in the black. But December was when the store was just full for Christmas. There was racks and racks of cake, rich fruit cakes and so on, Christmas cakes. All the orders were in it. It was just racks and racks of those cakes in the store. And the flour was up to the ceiling. The flour shipments was up to the ceiling. So there was probably, 400,000 of stock at a time.
Why did you give free cakes to the State House?
It was asked by State House, and it's something you had to do. You could not say no to State House. It was always like 1,000, 1,400, and bread. And when the NYS was launched, they had to supply all the cakes and all the bread for NYS to start with. And oh yes, and during the rebellion, when there was the rebellion, Sebek had to operate to supply hospitals and everybody else. And it was very busy, and one of the army branches came to pick up, because there was different orders, and they picked up the wrong order. So I called Major Marengo and said, Marengo, just to let you know that they picked up the wrong order, and your order is at the bakery. He said, stop bothering me. If you keep bothering me like this, I'll come and shoot you in your Sebek. This is what I heard from this guy. I'll come and shoot you in your Sebek.
Bigger order? Did he pick up a much bigger one, or?
No, but all these some of the orders were not coming because of the problem they had. Other small bakeries were not working, so we were supplying everybody.
Nice.
So much so the malice that was always happening. Seychelles was short of flour at one time, but we did our orders, in advance, and we had a good stock of flour. We were forced by Mr. Jacques Odul to supply the French bakery with the flour we had. He said, they've run out of flour, you need to give them some flour. A competitor has to help another competitor.
Socialism shouldn't be competition, right? And the land on which Sebek, was that also owned by the shareholders? The land?
All owned by the shareholders, but the bank had a mortgage on it. And we were hoping for the bigger sum because somebody was prepared to pay 100,000, and Mr. Boulay reckoned he could get him up to 120,000. The government came in and took it for 31,000. So that put the pressure on the family as well, because the family had promised the staff their December wages, and we had to. My mother-in-law had to take it out of her own account because there was the account of Sebek was frozen. And she had to find the money to pay the staff.
How many people, roughly, did the bakery employ?
Oh, the bakery had a lot, probably around 50, 60 people.
Okay.
And
So
different
they-
shifts.
They all lost their jobs.
You lost their job, yeah.
And when the new constitutional provisions came in, did you make a request for the review of the compensation that had been paid for the land and
No, we
and
didn't,
the
because the
business?
company
No?
was already struck off, it was dissolved. And living away from Seychelles, you're not hands-on of what was happening here.
In what sort of? How could you live in England? Did you have to get asylum or?
No, my father-in-law is British.
Your father-in-law
So my
is
wife
British.
was British, yeah.
So they let you all come in on that
we went
basis.
We went in easily, yes.
Oh.
Yeah. It was quite easy.
Not these days, I don't think.
No, probably a bit more difficult. No, it was easy, and I got my British passport within the first couple of months.
Did you find a job there?
No, we set up I had a job to start with, and then we got a leasehold on a small hotel. This is when Mr. Rene offered me to be a spy. Yeah, I mentioned that over the Caban des Anges case.
Ah, right,
Yeah,
yes.
we were chatting about something, and he said about Geo Awaro, and he said, please keep going on and report to him, and I don't need to work. He'll make sure I'm well taken care of. Probably have a few wages to start with, and a bullet through my head afterwards.
A big loss. This whole bakery, the land, just
Oh,
a big loss. And you say you don't want any compensation for
Yeah,
this
because
case.
it's we don't even know where some of the shareholders are, and the company's gone. So how do you claim? Which the owner was a company, a limited company. So how do you claim something we're not sure?
The violations are not just in relation to the material property, right? The violations of the harassment, the intimidation, the forcing you out of the country, right? So there are other, I notice that people that come here seem to think that compensation relates to property that was taken. They don't seem to have the concept of compensation for a violation of a right that you had.
Yes.
So there's that. Maybe it's difficult to work out a recommendation in relation to the business, but in relation to the treatment of the family, the forcing into the UK,
Well, if there was
the
a chance,
harassment, that sort of thing.
If there was a chance of the family getting something, we would welcome it. Yeah.
It would be consistent with other cases that we would make a recommendation
you.
on the rights violations,
But
even if we can't assess
it was a hard
that.
life. It was hard to start again in the UK. And my in-laws keep telling me, thank God you and your wife stuck by us. Otherwise, we would be destitute at the age they were at.
They were really, I've obviously grown up hearing the stories. It's really affected my grandparents their whole life. My grandmother had to be put on medication when she went to the UK because of depression and anxiety, and that's something that she's lived with now her whole life. My grandfather can't really speak about Saybake. It's still very, very raw for him.
He can't even speak about Saybek.
No, he's still, how many years are we now? 40 years later, and he still gets upset talking about Saybake.
He was totally against us coming here because it was reliving the whole scenario again. He's in Seychelles. He loves Seychelles, but he would not be here if it wasn't for the family, because we all wanted to be here, so he had to be here as well. But he relives it every day, and I know they went to Captene on Saturday.
Sunday.
And they were both in tears, when they got there?
It really changed the whole destiny of our family. Luckily, they all worked very, very hard and were able to make a success of their lives, but it certainly did completely change the direction that they were heading in.
You all, the whole family came back after 6 years?
Yes.
So what year was that
No,
then?
no,
you
not
ca-
after 6 years.
No. The 6 years we came on a holiday.
Oh, on a
We came on a
holiday.
big holiday.
Okay.
It was just my wife and I, and the kids,
Okay.
and the kids.
So when did you all move back here?
In
5 years ago.
2015.
2015. You were in Australia, so you moved from Australia back here too.
Yes, so
Yeah.
we all moved from, we were living in the Channel Islands, and then in the year 2000, as a family, we all moved to Australia because they missed the sun, but they weren't ready to come back to Seychelles at that time. And then in 2015, we decided that we would come back as a family and do our business here.
So we've got the whole sons-in-law as well. We've got one from Wagga Wagga.
Change here from, I mean, Australia is a bigger island. Right? It's still isolated, but it's much bigger. So it's complete change to come back.
Yeah, but I always missed
Yeah.
home. I shed a lot of tears. Overseas, and probably insulted Rene inside myself. Said a lot in my own brain about him.
And Dad also missed out being with his parents who were still in Seychelles. So he's had his whole life basically away from his family, which is really sad. So he missed spending the later years of his parents' life, and they've now passed. So it's all very, very, very sad.
Okay, I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Rene one Saturday at the fruit market in Ocap. He always stopped at the fruit market, and I went up to his window and said, "How are you?" And he said, "I don't recognize you." I said, "José Saint-Ange, the son of Carl." "Oh, yes." I said, "Just let you know, we're back and we've survived." And he said, "Oh," but I think he had lost the mind anyway. And I just wanted him to know that he did not destroy us in the end.
So thank you very much for coming again today, for setting that out so clearly. We now have a much broader understanding of the context. I do think there's rights violations in this case, and we will discuss it, but it's very similar to other cases that we have. So we will make recommendations based on those rights violations. We have no further. Thank you also for all of the documents. It makes it so much easier for us.
We've got
You
one
want
extra
Yeah.
copy.
Another copy if you
Yes,
wish, and
yeah.
and my little introduction on there as well.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
that will help.
It makes it so much easier for your investigator too, right? He doesn't have to dig around over in the Supreme Court
I
looking
could
for
not make my,
judgments.
because it could have been very long, and we've got a summary in
There
there.
was a summary in there that my dad and my mother actually wrote back in the 80s, so it's very detailed, lots more information, so it's definitely an interesting read.
And it's good reading from the Inns of Court as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That will be very useful in making the determination in this case. But thank you very much again.
So, but thank you for having us.
Yeah, and this is really just, it's all done for you, Desiree.
And Mr. Boulay knows the whole case. He was
Yes,
a
yes,
lawyer.
we will
so-
speak to, we need a waiver. Have we got a waiver, Desiree?
Yes, I will.
Yeah, we have. Okay, we'll get a waiver so that we can speak to Mr. Boulay. But thank you both again. And we will adjourn now and we will come back in 10 minutes, I think.
All right.
All right,
very
thank
much
you.
for having us.
Thank you. Bye.